local history, local culture, local events, your community. This is The Joe Kelly Show.
And hi there, everybody. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. Bob Igoe Jr. is our guest. Bob is a new author, and he is also the president of North Country Books, which is responsible for publishing a lot of local authors and distributing their books. We're going to talk to Bob about his new book. We'll talk to him about regional publications and some of our local authors. But before we do any of that, we're going to say, welcome. Good to see you, Bob.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you offering to have me on the show. It's an exciting time. I've been a publisher and worked in the publishing industry for very many years. I never thought I would become an author. The project kind of snuck up on me a little bit, but it's worked out very well, and I'm happy to be an author, and I actually plan on doing more books.
Good. Well, that anticipated one of my questions, but we'll get to that later. You said you've been in the publishing business for how many years? How many years?
Well, I started working for my father and with my sister back in 1987, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. And I've been with it ever since. I worked in every capacity in the publishing. I've done editing, I've done design, sales, and also all the fun stuff like working with insurance and all the actual just running of a business that everybody has to do no matter what type of business you have. Yeah. But I love the book business. My father was in the book business since the late 50s. He used to run Grant's Bookshop in downtown Utica. Most everybody in my family has worked in the book business at some capacity over the years, and I'm just thrilled to be able to still be in it.
Boy, Grant's Bookstore there is an icon from days gone by on the corner of Genesee and Hopper. See, it would be on the southeast corner of Genesee and Hopper. There's a bank in there now, but boy, I used to love going in that store.
Yeah, it was a great store. It was really for real book people. Yep. And everybody that worked there, you could have a discussion about any one of them, about any book. They were very well read and very up to date on what was going on in the book industry.
Yep. And then did he go from Grant's to founding North Country?
Well, actually, he didn't found North Country Books. Reverend Frank Reed, who's also the same gentleman who started the Woodsman's Field Days, among other things, he was selling to my father at Grant's Bookshop. And when the malls came in downtown Utica started to go into a little bit of a decline, he offered my father, would you like to buy my shares of North Country Books? And my father was a 1/3 partner at the time, but he was the managing partner. He did the editing, the design, the shipping. He basically was one person doing everything. And he had two partners. One was John Mahaffey, who did the printing and the graphic design, and Bill Charbonneau did the printing up at Boonville Graphics. And so the three of them kept publishing. It was very small at the time, maybe a dozen titles when my father got involved, but he was very well known in the book industry. And a lot of other folks would say to Bob, hey, if you're going to be out selling your books, would you mind selling my books at the same time? And I'll give you a commission. And that's how the distribution aspect of North Country Books started and has carried on till today.
Yeah, Reverend Frank Reed, what was he, the North Country, there was a nickname for
Lumberjack Sky Pilot.
Yes, very good.
That was the very first book that North Country Books published, written by Frank, and it was his story along with a lot of other Sky Pilot stories and the Sky Pilot was a term that was used for clergy who ministered to the lumber camps. Yeah. And that was the term they used for them.
Yeah, I've read that book. It's a great book. And in fact, there's a monument to him up in Boonville on Main Street where the Woodsman's Field Day office is. Yep. And so his name is not forgotten. Let's talk a little bit about your book, My Adirondack Vacations, and I'm going to hold that up there a little bit. And it's a book for how young of a child, Bob?
Oh, it can be read to the very little ones, reading on their own, probably preschool, anywhere in the preschool years. It's a book that I actually didn't plan on writing. We had done another board book called Adirondack Lullaby, and that book had been incredibly successful. Children's books in general over the last 5 to 10 years have been growing and growing and growing as far as sales. And the Adirondack Lullaby book had been incredibly successful, and I got thinking we need to do another book along that line. And I started coming up with the idea of the vacations, and I started coming up with the individual trips. And I said, well, we've got to contact one of the authors and see if they'll write this for us. And my coworker at the time, Zach Steffen, said to me, he says, well, you've kind of already written it. why don't you just be the author of this? And I kind of looked at him and was like, I don't do that. He says,
Yeah.
well, you can. In editing of other people's manuscripts, you're constantly rewriting, redoing things so that they make sense, so they're clear. And so I said, well, let me give it a try. And I went through and I came up with all the different trips, and it went through an editing, because you really can't edit your own work. You have to have somebody else looking at it. And it came back and it looked good. And it's like, well, let's go forward with this. And then we made the decision to publish, and I contacted an incredibly talented young illustrator by the name of Maggie Henry, who lives over in the Oswego area. This is the 4th book she's illustrated for us. And I talked to her about the project. She was on board, and we moved forward.
Yeah, I was going to say, the illustrations are quite good. And they're an illustration of all the places you go on the vacation. Name some of those spots.
Well, it was really fun going through it, because my wife and daughter and I have been traveling through the Adirondacks on vacations for many, many years, probably a few hundred different trips over the years. And in the book, we talk about the Adirondack experience, visiting there. We talk about the Wild Center in Tupper Lake, going to the Ice Palace in Saranac Lake, doing downhill skiing at Gore, going to Lake George and riding on the paddle boat, hiking on the Northfield Placid Trail, paddling a locally made canoe, going to the water parks, going to the forts. There's such a variety of types of places and outdoor recreational opportunities throughout the Adirondacks. We tried to cover it all and cover all the different seasons of the Adirondacks, because sometimes people think that the Adirondacks is just a place for summertime activities, and we made sure that we covered winter, spring, summer, and fall in the book.
And I know there's going to be another book in this, because at the back you say the first of my vacation series. So you've got a series in mind, Bob.
Yes, what I'm thinking I could do is taking this same concept and applying it to maybe New York State in general. So have vacation trips throughout the New York State area. Also, any state can actually have the same kind of book being written about it. I'm actually in the process of writing a book for Maine, one for New Hampshire, and one for Vermont, within the same concept. And it can kind of be applied anywhere. Cape Cod, Florida, Grand Canyon, any kind of a destination spot that is friendly to children is a possible title in this series.
Okay. When we come back, we'll talk some more to Bob Igoe Jr. about his new book, and we'll talk to him also about some of the things that are happening at North Country Books. Short break, right back.